I'll invite him out to dinner. It'll give me a rest from your cooking.
Good. Okay, you go and invite them, and I'll look for something to wear.
Oh, are you coming too?
I know you gonna dig this. Get funky with me.
Inside. For clothes that Tristan lost. At Bold 3 Detergent Plus Fabric Soap.
What's going on, everybody? How you doing today? So here I am in the Hancock Park district of Los Angeles, and if you've read the title, I am visiting the graves of Mr. and Mrs. Roper, Norman Fell, Audra Lindley from Three's Company. But I thought I'd start here. I'm not in a cemetery. I'm just on a street in Los Angeles. But right here, we're going to go a little closer. That was the setting for the Ropers, the spin-off of Three's Company. If you remember. Now, I'm assuming if you watch this, you're a fan of Three's Company. And if you don't know, Three's Company is a hugely successful show. John Ritter, Suzanne Summers, Joyce DeWitt, Priscilla Barnes. Late 70s, early 80s. And one of the greatest sitcoms of all time. And I'm trying to speak clearly, it's a little early. So, the Ropers were the landlords, right? Mr. and Mrs. Roper. And of course, at the end of the third season, they got their own spin-off called The Ropers. What happened with this show was it was immediately a huge success. Immediately. 6 episodes the first season. But then, in the second season of The Ropers, they aired it on Saturday night. I think Saturday night at like 10. It's not a good time slot. Saturday nights was never a good time slot for sitcoms. It was always during the week, especially back in the 70s and 80s. Three's Company aired on a Tuesday, and that was like the most desirable spot. That's where The Ropers first aired, and then gone. The ratings tanked. Then it had a little bit of resurgence, but the network pulled the plug on The Ropers. That's it right there. It's so cool to see. It's opening credits, the pilot episode shot right here. What's sad about it was Norman Fell, who plays Stanley Roper, he did not really want to do the spin-off. Audra Lindley was intrigued by it. She thought, well, maybe we should do it. They turned it down after the first season and said, no, we want to stick with what's working. We don't know if Three's Company was an instant smash, but they weren't sure if that was, just a flash in the pan, if it was going to continue. And of course it continues. So after the third season, episode 20, I believe it was, the Ropers moved out. And then their sitcom started. It was a late season replacement. I mean, it aired only 6 episodes later in the season. The season goes from September to May in television. Back in the day. Now they start all the time. But when you only had 3 networks, new episodes started in September, ended in May. So Norman Fell was still reluctant, and they signed a contract that said if the show does not succeed after a year, you can come back to Three's Company. And of course, the network screwed them over by waiting just after that contract expired to cancel the show. And then when Norman Fell pleaded with them, said, let us come back onto the show. They already had Don Knotts as Mr. Furley, who was excellent as well. And they did come back for 1 episode, and I believe it was in the 5th season. where they had all three of the landlords, Mr. and Mrs. Roper and Mr. Furley, in one episode. But they didn't bring them back as regular cast members because, well, money. It's a lot cheaper to pay one actor, Don Knotts, than it is three, or even two, if they got rid of Don Knotts, which they would not have done because it was still a huge success. So that was it for the Ropers. Which brings me to my next question, which I haven't even asked the question, so it would be my first question. Who did you prefer, Mr. Roper or the Ropers or Mr. Furley? Personally, I can't decide. I was thinking about it last night. I was like, I can't decide. I've seen every episode. I don't know which one I prefer. I don't know. This video, I'm not going to be going to Don Knotts' grave. That he's at Pierce Brothers Memorial Park. That is one of my videos. I'll put a link to that below, where I visited Don Knotts before. This is strictly the Ropers. Mr. Furley brought a different kind of comedy. Kind of similar to Mr. Roper somewhat. In terms of the storylines and stuff with Jack. But, I don't know. You're right below who you prefer, the Ropers or Mr. Furley. But look here. Right there. That was used as the Ropers' new apartment, when the townhouse complex. When they left, they wanted to be, well, Mrs. Roper wanted to be social climbers, so right there is where they filmed it. The pilot episode and the opening credits. There's a fake fire hydrant put here and a red line here, but you can tell it's the same one. They all look similar going along here. You can tell it's this one because of that tree, which is grown, but it leans to the left. And then also the curve of the road starts curving right here, and you see that curve of the road in the pilot and the opening credits. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into filming location for this. This is me visiting their graves, but also the shot, you can see that slant going up, and a lot of the other ones don't have that. So you can see how that building is coming out. But that was the opening, like I said, in the opening credits. Of course, Jeffrey Tambor, who went on to great success on Arrested Development and a few other shows. I'm trying to think of what other shows. Well, Jeffrey Tambor. Everybody knows Jeffrey Tambor. But there's shots of the Roper's car coming up here. And they parked right there. So they use it as establishing shots for the rest of the seasons. Well, season. There's only two for the next season, but they filmed the pilot here. We're a couple of miles away from where they actually filmed it at CBS Television Studios, not too far. And it's a beautiful little neighborhood. But they made it to be like an exclusive condominium district, and they did not want the Ropers moving in. I believe that was the premise. A lot of us grew up with Three's Company, either in first run or reruns. And a rerun, for people that don't know, because believe it or not, there are people that don't know what that is anymore. It's crazy. Is when a show ends its run of producing original episodes, they would air it in syndication on various local networks across the United States, Canada, and the world. You can watch it forever, like the Brady Bunch. I mean, not a lot of us grew up during the Brady Bunch era when it was actually on, but I think a lot of us in the 80s and 90s watched it. It's like the way kids are rediscovering The Office now, which to them is an old show. It just ended in 2012. But same sort of thing. There were no streaming services back then, but you had to catch it at 4:30 in the afternoon or something. That's when I would watch Three's Company. And of course, the Ropers only lasted a really short period of time, but it was kind of funny. I remember bits of it. Jeffrey Tambor, of course, came back onto Three's Company and played many different characters. Well, there it is. That's the Ropers apartment building. I don't know why okay, there we go. And there it is. There's the Ropers apartment building. So now we're going to go first up into the Hollywood Hills, and we're going to visit Mr. Roper, Norman Fell. Let's go. As we get to him, we'll just take a look at how beautiful this is. Mount Sinai, Forest Lawn, Hollywood Hills is right on the other side. And this is a huge cemetery as well, but not as big as Forest Lawn. Now, this being a Jewish cemetery, you will see rocks on a lot of the graves, more so in the New York cemeteries I've noticed. But that's where I picked it up from the Jewish faith about how I leave and why I leave rocks at every gravesite I visit. Norman Fell. They were doing maintenance, lawn maintenance. Everything's been freshly mowed today, I was told. And it looks like they haven't got to up here yet, or these flowers have been replaced. Maintenance crews at cemeteries remove things if they're dead, wilted, things like that. Or the sun has gotten to them if you leave stuffed animals, things like that. But it looks like this has not been done yet today, so I'm surprised there aren't more rocks. Norman Fell was in over 40 movies I was reading. It's a mad, 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 mad world. The Graduate. Look at that. Isn't that cute? Wow. The Graduate and what was the other one? Ocean's 11, the original Ocean's 11. And he was a tail gunner during World War II, and then he studied acting. He was born in Philadelphia, but then he studied acting in New York City. And his big break was, of course, as Mr. Roper. And he should be somewhere not too far around. I did a little bit of walking around, but I did finally find Norman Fell. He's right here. It's row 16 in the Gardens of Heritage. Just got to go all the way through, past that mural, make a right, and come out the other side. Norman Noah Fell. I believe he was billed as Norman Feld, his original name for his real name for the first few films and TV appearances, but then he changed it to Fell. Cherished and adored father, grandfather, and brother, 1924 to 1998. Greatly talented and romantic man. Wow. Right there. Take a closer look. He died of bone marrow cancer at the age of 74. I believe he was in an assisted living facility that's for actors when he died, up in Woodland Hills. And that's what I read. 74 years old. Mr. Roper right there. So these would be the ashes. When they're in small, I get asked this a lot. These are small, as you can see. Full interment in the bigger ones. Ashes here. I have a rock. I don't normally leave them at mausoleums. I saw it once over on the other side, because there's a Jewish cemetery, so people will be leaving them. But I'm going to put one right down here on the side for Mr. Fell. Just right there I put it. Beautiful spot. I mean, it's Los Angeles. It's the Hollywood Hills. Pretty much, they're all beautiful spots, but especially when they're overlooking this hill, as you're going to see when we walk out. What kind of views we're talking about here. And there are I've been here before. There are plenty of famous people buried here, and I've got videos coming up about some of those people. Take a look. How beautiful is that? Now we gotta drive across the city to Santa Monica. We're gonna go visit Mrs. Roper, Audra Lindley. So here I am at Woodlawn Cemetery in Santa Monica. This is a part of Santa Monica I've actually never really been to, but it's very windy, a lot colder. Same day, this is just like an hour later, and it was stifling hot in the Hollywood Hills, and now we're right near the ocean, and it's brisk. Got some LAPD action going on behind me. I'm not sure what's happening here, but Audra Lindley, who played Helen Roper, is here, buried in an unmarked grave with her father. Her father was Burt Lindley, who was an actor in around 1917, did a lot of roles, but mostly uncredited roles. Now, let me just take a look here as I talk about Audra. I'm just trying to take a look around where exactly I am. I hope I'm in the right area. I think I am. Let's take a look. So I know that Audra Lindley had dropped out of school at a young age to become an actress because her father's an actor, and she worked her way up. She was stand-in, stunt double, and then she went to New York. She did a lot of plays. She did On Golden Pond, Long Day's Journey into Night. Then she was on Another World for about 7 years, a soap opera. She played Meredith Baxter Bernie's mom in a television sitcom. But like I said, smaller roles, nothing made her famous until her breakthrough as Helen Roper. And here is where she's laying to rest, right here. Burt Lindley. In loving memory, Dad, Burt Lindley, 1873 to 1953, at rest. Now, some of you may be wondering why she has an unmarked grave. I don't know the exact reason why, but I've covered unmarked graves before on my channel, and I think a lot of people think that it's not. Well, people say it's not right. It's, they should have, which of course you would want them to have at their own headstone. But we don't know. We, the general public, we don't know the reasons why, because ultimately the stars that I visit and that we know, that you know, they're human. They're people just like us, and we don't know why. It could be a family decision. It could have been her decision, Audra, so she is buried right here. It could be because she just said, bury me beside Dad. Bury me beside Dad. I don't want any. Maybe she's superstitious. She doesn't want a name. Who knows? Just maybe bury me beside Dad with no fanfare. That could be it. Maybe her family couldn't bear to see her name on a headstone. Maybe they didn't want to disrupt this headstone's already here because the plot was for 2 people, right? And they like the headstone the way it is. Maybe it's for privacy reasons, which, I mean, it's on the internet, so I realize as soon as I say that, I could be disrupting the privacy of the family. But it could be many reasons. Maybe the family couldn't afford a headstone. I've seen that happen before with celebrities, and fans get together and get a headstone. That's something you have to, you have to go through the cemetery and family and all that. But ultimately, we don't know. Frank Zappa has an unmarked grave, Roy Orbison. John Singleton did up until a while ago. The director of Boys in the Hood. Within 5 months, I'd been to his grave. It was unmarked, and then he had a headstone. I have a video about that. Bob Saget is still unmarked, of course, up at Mount Sinai where Norman Fell is. He's unmarked because it is a Jewish cemetery. Tradition states it takes a year, so I would assume in a year Bob Saget will have a headstone. But Mrs. Roper, here she is right here, buried with her father, which is very sweet. And it's an interesting little cemetery. It's just right in this suburban little area of Santa Monica, kind of tucked away. And I'd heard of it because I'd been planning on doing a video on the Ropers for a while, but honestly I thought it would be a little more bigger. And I know that it says it's open 24 hours, which is not a big city thing. Big city cemeteries close early. Smaller towns, lots of times are open 24 hours. The gates are all locked, but the main entrance was open. So I don't know if they do lock them at night, but it says 24 hours, which I thought was very bizarre. But then again, the LAPD does patrol it, so it could be. But here's the final resting place of Mrs. Roper in Santa Monica, where the show took place. That's right, Three's Company took place in Santa Monica. Here she is. She's a Los Angeles gal. She was born here. She died of leukemia. And I believe, I don't know if I mentioned Norman Fell died of bone marrow cancer. And so there's no birth or death date, but she died in 1997 at the age of 79. Mrs. Roper. There is nothing funnier than Mr. Roper's reactions when he would give a good dig at Mrs. Roper and then he turned to the camera with that smile. I think we all know that. That was his trademark. And Mrs. Roper, of course, with her, I call them booby dresses, like those dresses that she would wear in her outrageous style, and, you know, always trying to get Stanley to go to the bedroom. One of the greatest couples ever in the history of television comedies, I think. The Ropers. All right, so I'm going to walk back to my car now and get some more videos going. Lots more coming from California. This is my tribute to the Ropers, Audra Lindley and Norman Fell. Hope you enjoyed this video. Rest in peace, Norman Fell and Audra Lindley. And like I said, Don Knotts, he's in a different video of mine. He's at a different cemetery, Pierce Brothers and Westwood. So I will put a link to that below because I love Don Knotts. Who doesn't? Who is better, Mr. Furley or the Ropers? I don't know. Let's just say, well, I'm going to say I love them, the three of them equally. I love them all. It would have been cool if they did the show with all three of them. I don't know how they would have done it. But what was Mr. Furley's brother's name? Bart? I don't know. Bart Furley? They could have figured out something. But they just didn't want to pay. All that money that the network was making back then. And they just didn't want to pay. It's a shame. It sucks. Because I had all three of them. Alright. Peace out.
All right, Alan, let's go. Next time you want to take your clothes off and run around, make sure it's in our apartment.
Oh, Stanley, do you mean it?
But just warn me ahead of time. I'll go to the movies or something.